With 7 brothers and 18 male cousins, I grew up surrounded and protected by men. It's probably why I couldn't keep a date. Whether you're a man or a woman, let me ask you, do you have a son, a nephew, a younger cousin, or even a son-in-law you couldn't stand? I mean, didn't understand? Do you have beliefs and expectations about how a man should act? Well, it's just not you, let me tell you. I'm talking about the self-identifying men and how the old school ideas of manhood cripple them today and could be disastrous for the future. Our ideas about manhood can no longer be described in the way it was. It's time we change from treating them like Shrek, maybe, or should we treat him like Prince Charming? Prince Charming grins and bears it. Shrek, he grins and shares it. Olgas are like onions. What, they stink and make you cry? No, onions have layers. Men have layers too. Now, you might have noticed I am a woman and I'm talking about men. It's okay. There's a reason. What makes me qualified to talk about men? Well, it's a deep compassion for men's health, a psychology degree, and an obsession with a good smelling armpit on a man. Because my family, particularly the men, struggled to be understood, were stereotyped and labeled, including my own misunderstanding of men, I wanted to do better for the men around me. I studied men as a therapist, and it started in 1996 at the Spivey Group Home for Boys in Oakland, California, and then to my private practice in Atlanta, Georgia. And now I consult men around the globe. And my calendar stays booked, okay? I've witnessed men from all walks of life sink into my comfy couch, start talking, and soon see an overflow of tears like a running faucet with no shutoff valve. Men are hurting and they feel trapped. According to the National Institute for Mental Health, 25%, that's 1 in 4 men ages 26 to 49, have mental health problems. According to the Centers Disease Control and Suicide, 25 to 34 years old, and these are men, are not making it. So what should we do? I want to share with you the triple E method. 3 pivotal pillars to help these men today and future generations. Us as a community can help these men so that they can reach their successes and it can ripple 7 generations out and beyond. Now, I remember my 12-year-old cousin, who will remain nameless to protect his manly pride, running home because he was chased by the most notorious, sophisticated, well-known bully of all time. Get this, standing 3.5 feet tall and missing 2 front teeth, she was scary. When my cousin ran through the door like a bolt of lightning and almost took the hinges off the door, my uncle said, "Don't let nobody punk you. Get your aspirations back out there and fight. You need to grow some." Now, I remember thinking at age 7, grow some what? More hair? The ideology of a man is based on community, local government, federal, state mandates. Also, mentors like teachers, parents, and even single parent mothers. So this is what I would like to do. I want to introduce something that we can do for these young men, and it's called the triple E method. 3 pivotal pillars to help them move forward. Now, I am a member of a squad called Psychotherapists, and I want to share with you what we need to do. Step 1, engage. Marcus swings open my office door, and his bright eyes and complexion shines and gleams. He walks in, he's married with 2 children, and he begins talking right away without taking a breath. He notices my silence, and eventually he says in this high-pitched voice, "Do I talk too much?" And as a therapist, I can't tell him he talks too much. This is a talk therapy. So I say, "No, keep going. It's okay." He talked about his life, his pains, his frustrations, and being a man, and particularly his anger around being called effeminate, and that he is not a real man. As I listened to him, I noticed there wasn't anything wrong with Marcus. His environment did not embrace his uniqueness, his unique voice, the validity of what he had to say, and how he said it. According to Dr. Gandhi, in his article, Exploring Identity and the Identification of Cyberspace, stereotypes shape opinions, and identity is shaped through the interactions with others, like a direct contact, which can hijack a person's self-development. So back to the prescription. To help men like Marcus, I suggest we have an open mind without labeling, criticizing, or judging, but leaning into interactions. Initiate a conversation and have a common ground, because there is something we can learn from this amazing individual. Marcus is not broken. How we see him is. Engage him. Step 2, empower. Sev walked through the door, and I swore he stood 10 feet tall. His shoulders scraped my office corners, and I thought, ooh, welcome, Almighty Thor. Leave the hammer in the lobby. Love Marvel movies. Sev seemed gentle and non-confrontational, unlike Thor, who says to Hawk, "Come, Hawk, let's do battle." Sev uttered, "I feel weak and like a pushover." He said people told him to use his size to intimidate them to get what they wanted. Sev sighed a lot and cried a little. This statement etched in my mind like a neon sign. "I'm a sensitive soul with big muscles," Sev would say. It was difficult for him. Unlike Thor, who says to Hawk in Ragnarok, "I know you're in there, Banner, I'll get you out." Many men are forced to become something they are not based on the expectations of them. There is nothing wrong with Sev. The problem is the social assumptions based on who he is and how he looks. Psychologists Bell and Butler, in their various works with gender and identity, said that the desire for belonging creates gender and an individual sense of self. Bell describes it as identity is the effect of performance, not vice versa. Sev's identity should be based on how he performs, not on how people think he should perform based on how he looks. Empower him by accepting who he is. You don't have to be biased or prejudge or have misconceptions. Ask him who he is. Develop a mentor-mentee relationship and root for his endeavors instead of uprooting his confidence. Empower him. Step 3, embrace. Luis had a sun-kissed complexion with a super sweet smile, adored a toned body, and just a bright, loving spirit. He walked with a gentleness and firmness in his stride. His black man's bag hung across his body. He described himself as an attentive, soft-spoken, and passive man. "Luis, did you clean the house and buy that dress yet?" He said his father and brothers would always joke and say he wasn't a real man because they thought his interests were too feminine. Luis felt misunderstood and ashamed. And it's just not my thoughts. In machismo, gender role conflict, and mental health in Mexican American men, Fergoso examines gender as it relates to the negative cognitive behaviors of everyone. You see, with gender comes a set of assumed roles and behaviors. When you force someone out of their true being, you cause trauma and problematic outcomes. So, for this third step, embrace a Luis and others by not challenging them to be something he is not or does not want to be. Show unconditional acceptance for self expression. Take your time out to learn who he is. It's okay. So you don't have to show biases, misconceptions, or just try to wonder what type of person he is. Take a step forward and learn more. Now, men are evolving. Not into the hawk, though, the opposite. We all are evolving. I changed how I treat men, and I invite you to change how you think about men too. We can do better together. In the fabled words of Donkey, we can all stay up late swapping manly stories, and in the morning I'll make you waffles. We've got to do the triple E method and practice the three pillars. If I could have helped you start yesterday, I would have, but I just met you. Today's man is different from yesterday's man. He is more in tune with his feelings, vocal about his thoughts, and changing old, outdated gender roles. Instead of complaining about or picking him apart, pick a pillar, pick a man, pick a part to play in his life. In the famous words of Yoda in Empire Strikes Back, do or not. There is no try. Whether you're traditional, somewhat, or far from it, I want you to take a deeper interest in these men, for it's just not for them. It's for the community, the world, and 7 generations and beyond. Let's make rippling effects for the future by engaging, empowering, and embracing them. Thank you for listening.